So perhaps unsurprisingly, Bill Maher has officially turned on his Lord and Savior Robert Mueller after the release of the report. Take a look.
Just because you have a stone face doesn't mean you belong on Mount Rushmore. For over 2 years, America has had a crazy person in the White House, and for over 2 years, the Democrats have done fuck all about it because they were waiting for Mueller. We all sat around waiting for Prosecutor Jesus to turn in his big report. And he came back with, ask someone else. We needed Superman, and we got Clark Kent. Trump calls the Mueller report the crazy Mueller report, and in a way he's right, because it's over 400 pages detailing terrible crimes by a corrupt president, yet Mueller does not prosecute. If Dostoevsky had written the report, it would be called Crime and No Punishment. Mueller's report is full of buts. Don Jr. met with the Russians, but Manafort gave internal polling data to a Russian, but Trump obstructed justice every day, but Robert Mueller, he loves big butts and he cannot lie. Preet Bharara was on Real Time the week the Barr summary came out, and I had one burning question. Could a different prosecutor have reached a completely different conclusion? And he said, yeah. That's all I need to know. I get it. Mueller's a Boy Scout, a straight arrow. He played it by the book. But you may have noticed for the past 3 years, we're kind of been off book. And greatness sometimes means not doing everything by the book. Thomas Jefferson made the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, doubling the size of the United States, without any authority to do so. But history called his name, and it said, take the shot, Mav. That's what Spielberg's movie Lincoln is about. Even after the Emancipation Proclamation, black people were not free. That required a constitutional amendment initiated in Congress. And to make that happen, while he had a window to make it happen, Lincoln lied, bribed, freed prisoners, even fast-tracked an entire new state into the Union. None of which Mueller would have had to do. All he had to do is what people in the justice system do every day. Use the law to come to justice, not be so restricted by technicalities that the bad guys win. In Watergate, the special prosecutor, Jaworski, faced a very similar guideline, but he understood the big picture and his role in history, and he sued a sitting president anyway. Mueller could have done that, and the headline the next day would have been, Mueller breaks with president, indicts Trump, and then that would be our new reality. And it would have been a better reality, because now Trump goes into the election as a vindicated martyr, and hell hath no fury like a whiny little bitch scorned.
I mean, all along, we were urging Democrats to not put all of their eggs in the Mueller basket and to not over-focus on Russiagate. And especially for the media, that is what they did. They completely over-focused on this issue. They made it their main thing. And then it comes back, the report comes back, and it says, yeah, no collusion. There's an argument for obstruction, and by the way, I agree with that. There is an argument for obstruction, but there's no collusion. So we told them every step of the way, and what did they say in response? They dismissed us, and they fucking hated us. They hated us. They hated us because we were like raining on the partisan idiot parade. And we were like, hey guys, y'all are being some partisan idiots right now. And it would be like, fuck you, like shut the fuck up. And they would accuse us of like, us of all people, of like, you guys are playing loose with the facts. We're playing loose with the facts? Look at all the fucking countless breathless articles about Russiagate and the Mueller report, and how many of them are just flat out proven totally false, like bombshell. Paul Manafort met with Julian Assange in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. Twice. That didn't even happen. So, as they were playing loose with the facts and working backwards from their conclusion and feeding into this narrative, and we warned them, don't do it. Hey, focus on the policy issues. This is really important. This is really substantive. They mocked us. They derided us. They dismissed us. They fucking hated us. Now we're vindicated, and now what do? immediately turn on their Lord and Savior Mueller. Before, he was, yes, Mueller. They release fucking videos on Twitter. We wish you a Mueller Christmas. We wish you a Mueller Christmas. We wish you a Mueller Christmas, and we're partisan hacks. They were so happy. Yes, Mueller. Chelsea Handler was like, I'm sexually attracted to him because he's so hot and he's going to save the country. And then when we're proven right, they turn on him immediately. Now, I'm waiting for is Mueller compromised by Russia? Now, the other thing I find hilarious about this is that Maher is one of those guys who I think quite correctly screamed at the far right to get over Russia, not Russiagate, excuse me, Benghazi. Russiagate is Democratic Benghazi. But yeah, that's the point, is that when it was on the other side and it was like, hey, this isn't, like, the conclusions of this are not what you assumed they were all along, that, like, what, Hillary Clinton wanted our fucking ambassador to die and Obama wanted our ambassador to die and we're totally, like, Maher was like, get over it, come on, we have the conclusion, move on, let's focus on serious shit. But now when the shoe's on the other foot, he's like, I'm not going to get over it, I'm not going to move on, and I'm going to continue harping away at this, and now I'm going to blame the person who did the investigation. So he's totally, he just exposes himself as a rank partisan hack and hypocrite here. And then the final point is this, man. He really has an infantile view of politics, because, like, what does he think was going to happen, even under the best case scenario? So your boy Mueller rides in on his white horse to save us all. But even if Trump was magically removed from office and he didn't, like, cause a constitutional crisis by fighting back, which he obviously immediately would have done, but even if he didn't and he was magically removed from office, you have Pence and all of the same policies are going to be implemented. So the resistance still has to be just as aggressive, except now it's got to be on the stuff it should have been all along, which is policy, Bill. Policy. See, that was, like, the main thing that drove me nuts about this is, like, there was always this weird belief, a couple layers removed in their subconscious of, like, if we just get rid of Trump, everything will be okay. Not only will it not be okay, we would literally be in the exact same situation in terms of the shitty policies being implemented. And perhaps the only difference is you might care even less because the guy who's doing it this time, if it was Pence, is a polite, mild-mannered dude who lulls you to sleep as he passes the same kind of Wall Street deregulation, as he does the same tax cuts for the uber-rich and corporations, as he continues bombing all the same countries that Trump is in the midst of bombing. So that's why all along you had to be principled and you had to be focused on policies. You had to resist the further Wall Street deregulation. You had to resist the bombing of the zillion more countries that were bombing. You have to resist the tax cuts for the rich. You have to resist the destruction of the EPA and the destruction of our entire regulatory bodies and our regulatory agencies. This is what you had to resist. And the fact that you weren't able to do it shows me you either don't really care about that result, or you do care, but you're totally incompetent. So that's the thing, is like, what, even under your best case scenario, Bill, what happens? What happens? And listen, he's saying, I wanted him indicted. I wanted Donald Trump indicted. But then, Bill, you just set up a precedent. So let's say Mueller says, we're going to ignore the Constitution and we're going to indict the president. Well, you just set up a precedent where the opposition party can set up some bullshit fucking investigation, and then on flimsy pretenses, because the report said no collusion, so on flimsy pretenses, you could remove a president. Now imagine you set that precedent, and then next is President Bernie Sanders, and the Republicans have the majority in the House and have the majority in the Senate. Then what? Then what? You know how quickly they would open like 8 bullshit investigations? And they'd find one little nugget with a half-truth in it, where they say, what are we going to do? We're indicting the sitting president. What? So the opposition party can set up a special investigation, and then the special investigator can indict the sitting president, and they can try to remove the sitting president? When the Constitution is crystal clear, the way you go after the president is through impeachment. It has to be through impeachment. So if you, like, this is why I can't stand people like Bill Maher at this point, is that this is what hack partisan commentary looks like. And they refuse to grapple with the precedent they set and the principle that they're buying into. And once you buy into this principle that the opposition party or the deep state and the intelligence agencies can, on flimsy grounds, go after the president, that will immediately be used on day one against a left-wing president. Immediately be used on day one against a lefty. Even quicker than against a right-winger, because at least the right-winger, in the minds of the deep state, at least Trump is feeding that military-industrial complex beast. At least he's feeding his Wall Street allies and his corporate allies. With Bernie, those people are his enemies. The military-industrial complex, his enemy. The corporations, his enemy. The rich, his enemy. So he would actually be standing up to power, and this would be power's way of striking back at him and getting him out of there before he hurts them too much. So that's the problem. Like, they're refusing to grapple with the long-term impact of what they're asking for. And that's what's so frustrating. And he's also refusing to grapple with the reality that if you were to actually impeach Donald Trump, guaranteed, it turns out his rabid base more than anything else could possibly do it. And you're making it much more likely he can win in 2020 if you make him this martyr. But that's what Bill's arguing for, is let's make him the martyr. And he said, like, he argued there, like, now Trump is going to claim vindication. Well, yeah. So maybe the problem was the specific focus of the investigation from the beginning. Maybe if you had focused like a hawk on emoluments, or maybe if you had focused like a hawk on the illegal war in Yemen where we're aiding a genocide, if that was your focus, those arguments are much more powerful. And he's guilty, so perhaps he wouldn't be a martyr. But when you made the focus of the report this goofy idea if he's a Manchurian candidate and there's collusion with the Russian government when virtually all of his policies are against the Russian government, of course he was going to get to claim vindication, because it was obvious from the beginning that what they were claiming was not true. So you're like, he can't help himself. He just hates Trump so much that it's just his reasoning has broken down, and there's no grappling with what would happen if he even got his way. So I just find this kind of commentary insufferable. We knew they were going to turn on Mueller eventually. Before he was the Lord and Savior, now he's the part of the problem. And, maybe come up with better tactics. Because it's not... Donald Trump is the easiest political target in the world. And if I was running the opposition to him, and I got to control, if I'm emperor of the Democratic Party, and I'm emperor of their resistance, and I got to control the ways in which we attack him, his approval rating would be like fucking 18%. Right now it's 39%, which is low as fuck, by the way, because Trump is self-destructing enough on his own. But, with an adequate, intelligent, strong resistance, you absolutely could make the 2020 victory a guarantee for the Democrats, but more importantly, a guaranteed victory for the left, and that would mean actually fixing the country and getting the right policies implemented. But in order to use this line of thought, you actually have to give a shit about policy, and I don't think Bill Maher does. I think he's just playing partisan politics.